Hello, readers. Sean Baker is a filmmaker whose credits include The Florida Project, Tangerine, and his newest film, now out in theaters, titled Red Rocket, starring Simon Rex. Sean, thank you for the time. How you doing today?
Great. Great to be here.
It's my pleasure. So for people who are unfamiliar, what is Red Rocket?
Red Rocket is the story of Mikey Saber, who is a former adult film performer who returns to a small town in Texas to reunite with his ex because he's found himself down and out, and things don't go quite as expected.
All right. And Texas City is the locale that you chose. Why Texas City? I've driven through that town countless times and have never thought that a film should be shot there.
Well, Texas City spoke to me for many reasons. We were actually exploring refinery towns up and down the coast. And when I drove into Texas City, I saw this big water tower that said Texas City, the all-American city. And that was the first thing that said to me, maybe you should be making a film about, small town America here. But then we started discovering the history, learning about the history of the area. In ways a very sad and dark history with the explosion from 1947, the hurricane from Galveston, and the Texas killing fields. That whole area seemed to have like this sort of looming darker history, and that sort of complemented the what we were doing with the theme of history in the film. So and then on top of that, visually, when you're in Texas City, or at least sections of Texas City, it really just feels like you are surrounded by the refineries, and it's quite a visual sight. So on a cinematic level, it was like a filmmaker's dream to shoot that.
Yeah, you did a great job of using those refineries as a background character throughout the film. Now, this movie stars Simon Rex. Yes, that's Simon Rex, and he does a phenomenal job as a washed up porn star. He's a devious charmer who goes back home, and really anybody who spent time around him 20 plus years ago is onto his games, but he finds some folks who maybe idolized him in the past or just don't know any better to try and get his hooks back in to suck them dry as well. And Simon was phenomenal in this role. How did you end up casting him as the lead?
I actually have been watching him for a few decades. We're about the same age, and I've watched his career. He's always entertained me. He's always made me laugh. And it was around remember that app called Vine, where you could put up 6 seconds of video? Well, he was doing it all the time, and he was making me laugh. And I knew then, I was like, this guy deserves a dramatic role. I can see it, that he understands it's more than just comedy. He knows how to deliver a line in a dramatic way. And so when Red Rocket rolled around, we reached out to him. Simple as that. I knew he would be perfect for it.
And it's hard to pick a member of the secondary cast who shines as brightly as Simon, because the secondary cast is phenomenal. That's part of the reason. I don't want to single any one person out, but I do also have to mention Susana San. She is magnetic. What convinced you that she was the right actor to play Strawberry?
I do a lot of my own street casting as well as the traditional type of casting. And she came from street casting, actually. I was at the ArcLight Hollywood. We had just seen a film. We were leaving. She was coming in. We saw her across the lobby, and she has that it quality, that undefinable, aura that you see in superstars. And I think we were just drawn to her. This was 3 years ago. This was 2 years before we shot. And we just approached her, and I told her who I was, and I directed these independent films. I think she recognized one of the titles. And so, and we exchanged information, but just kept her information, knowing that someday we'd work with her. And then Red Rocket rolled around. We had this character of Strawberry, and we reached out to her, and she said, "I've been waiting for your call for 2 years." And, I mean, she's incredible. Not only obviously an incredible actor, she has an incredible physicality and look. The camera it loves her. But on top of that, she's also a skilled musician and can sing and perform. And teaches piano. So she's the reason actually that we brought the NSYNC song into the film, because we wanted her to perform something and we wanted to have a song that worked contextually as well. So we came up with NSYNC. So yeah, she's a gift on many levels.
It was cool the different ways that you used that song, including, if I'm not mistaken, playing it backwards at one point. Now, was it difficult to get NSYNC or the record label to sign off on allowing you to use that song for the film?
Well, no, it was pretty painless. I have a wonderful music supervisor by the name of Matthew Smith, who I've worked with on Florida Project, got me Celebration from Kool and the Gang for that film. And so this was just, this one, I was like, I have another number one pop song that you're going to have to get for me. And hey, it worked out. Yeah, I know that NSYNC had to literally, each member had to approve. I know that. So that's interesting.
And not just with the introduction where you're playing that song, but also throughout the film, you will abruptly cut sound to end scenes. And you do so in a very effective manner, both with songs and even with ambient noise as well. Is there a specific film or director who did this that made you want to explore it on your own?
You know what? I don't know. I think it actually, I'm an editor. I edit my own films, and it just became something I started to use a few films back. I think a film called Starlet that I made before Tangerine, and it had that same sort of thing. Because I'm always trying to keep the audience on their toes. And I know that something like that, cutting hard out from a music track, is a very jarring thing. So we'll keep the audience engaged and wondering what the hell is going on. Because it's not the normal way of, usually editing is invisible. Usually it's supposed to be invisible, but I like to play with different styles. And so this is just something that I've been developing on my own.
Well, you've nailed it, at least with this film. And I've seen a couple of the other movies that you've just referenced, the Florida Project and Tangerine as well. And a commonality between those two and Red Rocket is taking a closer look at the socioeconomically disadvantaged lifestyle. What is it about this that appeals so much to you when it comes to telling stories?
I just think that my films are perhaps reactions of what I'm not seeing enough of in U.S. film and TV. And when I see portrayals like this, they're usually one-dimensional, and that always bothers me. I want to, if I'm exploring these sort of communities, people who are marginalized, people who live on the fringes, the last thing I want to do is make them one-dimensional. I want them to be fully realized, so that general audiences can connect with them on just, and find, commonalities and also just universal truths in their characters and in their behavior. So it's just something that I feel very important. It's funny because the way that I approach it now is like this. If a filmmaker came into my life and said, I want to make a film about your world, and I perhaps even want cast you to play somebody with similar life experiences as yourself, I would want that filmmaker to do it in the most respectful, responsible way, and I would want to feel good about my representation on screen. And so that's how I approach other people's stories. If
you had some say so in the cast for that movie, who gets to play you?
Simon Rex. I have no idea.
That's fair. So you just talked a little bit about something that is important in the storytelling process for you. Are there any other major keys that are required for you to truly enjoy telling a story?
Well, I think, humor. Humor is a major thing for me because, it's easy. This film could have been humorless. This film could have been Big Bad Wolf, Little Lamb, black and white story about sex trafficking and grooming, easy stuff. But life is more complex than that. People have, Strawberry's character is quite complex. She's not exactly who, we don't portray her character exactly the way some similar characters like hers have been portrayed in the past. And we use that by infusing humor. There's a lot of behavioral humor in this. And I think that, often when people are trying to tell film stories like this, they shy away from it, perhaps because they think it might be inappropriate. But I think it's very appropriate because life is comedy and pathos. It's that balance between the two. And if you don't have one, you're simply not being honest.
Totally agree. Dark comedies are my favorite. Now with Strawberry, she looks very innocent. She's not so innocent when you get to know her, but she still has this sort of naivete just because of her age that is required for that story to continue to move along and for Simon's character to continue interacting with her and then leading up to the finale as well.
Exactly. Yeah. I see her as, she might be a mature 17-year-old, but he's an incredibly immature 45-year-old. So they meet somewhere in the middle.
As somebody who occasionally enjoys smoking a joint, I did appreciate the American flag papers. When did this come to you, and was the irony intended, Sean?
Well, the irony was most definitely intended. I am a cinephile, and I watch a lot of movies from all different genres and countries. And so this film actually, there was a film called Candy Snatchers from 1973. And it's an American film, and it's the characters would be smoking these American flag rolling paper cigarettes in the film, and I just thought it was a great image, so I borrowed it, to be quite honest.
All right. It's imitation is one of the greatest form of flatteries, as they say. All right, last couple of questions here. And I'm going to avoid any spoilers, but I think these questions are important for those who may be curious about the film or maybe somebody afterwards who's wondering, was it a prosthetic?
I can't answer that question because Simon may be able to answer that question, but I'm gonna sorry, can't reveal that.
Okay, and last question for you, Sean. It's interesting to speak with really good storytellers who will also end a story abruptly. And it's not because, well, maybe it is a little bit about screwing with the audience, but it's also understanding that the story doesn't necessarily end at that point. And it's a good thing when you're telling a story to an audience to leave them hanging at the very end. So my question for you, based on Red Rocket and also just what you've done in films throughout your career, is when you end a movie, do you know what happens next, or when the credits roll, is that it as far as the story goes in your head?
I'm more interested in the audience sort of writing their own endings, because as you just said, life doesn't just end, life keeps going. So for me, yes, I have my own idea of what happens to Mikey at the end. I have my own idea of what happens to two little girls at the end of Florida Project. But for me to just literally portray that is boring. And it also doesn't allow audience participation. So yes, I have my own version of it. Sometimes my co-screenwriter has a different version of it. And hopefully the audience has many different interpretations.
Sean Baker is a filmmaker whose credits include Tangerine, The Florida Project, and his newest film, a wonderful dark comedy called Red Rocket, starring Simon Rex. You can check it out now, wherever films are seen. Sean, thank you so much for the time today, and thank you for this wonderful movie.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for having me on.
Join me next time when I speak with former football player Ryan Shazier on Walking Miracle, how faith, positive thinking, and passion for football brought me back from paralysis and helped me find purpose. Thanks to Gentleman Jesus for the intro and outro music. Hear more of his work at gentlemanjesus.com. And thanks to you for hanging out. You can listen, learn, and connect for free at booksonpod.com. For Books on Pod, I'm Trey Elling. Good day.